Hey guys, Justin from Deep Dive Stocks here with another data dive. Today we're going to be diving into SOFI. So, as most of us know, SOFI had an earnings call earlier in the week, and then in the after hours it jumped up to 20%. So the question is, well, and then it fell. I guess that's the important part, right? So the question is, was this anticipatable? Could we have foreseen this? So we're going to look at the data. We're going to look at it before the earnings call, and then we're going to look at it after the earnings call. And we're just going to see if anything in the deep dive stocks reports could have given us a heads up towards the price action and the inevitable fall that SOFI experienced. So today we're going to look at yesterday's report, or March 3rd's. And here's VoEx. VoEx is pretty new for SOFI. It's a new stock, I guess. It just came out in June of 2021. And the most recent VoEx behaviors, VoEx has just been coasting at the propagation zone. This, in conjunction with a falling price, well, it's named the propagation zone for a reason, because it typically, when VoEx is in the propagation zone or at the propagation line, the current price action gets propagated. So that's exactly what we see. Ever since VoEx fell into the propagation zone, I guess back in November, if I know my months right, of 2021, it kind of peaked up a little bit since, but the predominant price action has been downwards. And not only that, we see that any price increases have been met with some pretty strong VoEx spikes. So the VoEx is indicating that the price should continue to go down, and any price appreciations are being worked against by the market. So overall, VoEx on SOFI is indicating persistent instability. But even if we go all the way back, so if we go back to the 28th of February, VoEx is still at the propagation zone. But there's more data in these reports than just VoEx, right? And that's the beauty of these reports, I think. So what I'm most interested in is knowing how was the market positioning themselves with their options as the earnings report was coming up. So let's take a look. Let's fast forward through all of this other good stuff and go right to the options. So the options on the left, those are the current options as they stand. So this is for the 28th again. And then the bar graph on the right is the change in options. The bars represent the change in the percent difference in the options from the day prior, and the lines, the squiggly lines, those represent the average change per day over the past month. So we see for the past month, for instance, lots of puts, out of the money puts being opened, and lots of a good healthy distribution of calls being opened on average for the past month. So we have a good amount of calls being opened, a good amount of puts being opened. The question is, are retail investors like me and you, are we purchasing those calls so we think the price is going to go up? Or are we selling those calls because we think the price is going to go down? Well, ordinarily, you wouldn't be able to tell this. You would just have to make that assumption, which is what a lot of options flow does. They just go, oh, we see a lot of calls entering. That must be bullish. Is that true? Let's find out. Deep Dive Stocks has the delta. So this is the net delta change for SOFI. And we see for the past month, the average delta on SOFI has been negative 35,000. That's a gamma squeeze. That's pretty significant. I guess we got to pause. If you haven't watched the video on my channel on delta, now would probably be a good time to do it. It explains what positive delta is, negative delta, and I also have a video on gamma squeezes, definitely worth checking out. But the gist is, in the past month, as these calls have opened up and these puts have opened up, delta has risen. It's gone from negative 35,000 to 61,000. That means that these options are supplying positive delta to the stock. Which options supply positive delta to the options dealer? Well, those are short puts and long calls. So what that tells us is the majority of these calls that are being opened are retail short, which means that the people opening these calls expect the price to drop. And that's pretty significant. Then if we head over to the first, we see the same thing. As the first closed, even more calls opened up. There was somewhat of a decrease in delta, but overall, our delta is still climbing. And then when we get to the second, more calls are opening up, more puts are opening up, and this time, oof, look at that delta, 97,000. So all of these calls and all of these puts that are being opened are anticipating a decline in price. People are selling calls upstream because they think the price is never going to reach it, it's just going to drop. And then people are buying puts to capitalize on the downside. They're just shorting the stock. So the few days leading up to the earnings report, this behavior is telling us, despite all the thunder and war on all the various social media platforms talking about SOFI's earnings report, the market was actually positioning themselves to experience a decline in price. And that's exactly what happened, right? Like it shot up 20-some% after hours and then immediately fell back down. If we go to back to today's, we see that this increase in price, it was met with somewhat of a VoEx spike. I'm not gonna like write home about this one, but the most recent decline in price is being met with a pretty healthy like dip back into the propagation zone. So that's somewhat concerning. The snap graphs are negative on all 4 time frames. So the snap graphs take VoEx's behavior and then they map it to historical returns. And again, the options are pretty significant. So we see a good amount of puts being opened and not that many calls changing hands. So in a nutshell, was SOFI's drastic drop in price anticipated? Well, it seems like a lot of people in the market thought so because they sold a whole bunch of calls and they purchased a whole bunch of puts. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for joining me on today's data dive. Again, if you haven't, definitely check out the video on delta, video on gamma squeezes. If you want even more material, I have tons of it on the website, deepdivestocks.com. And happy trading, guys. Bye.